What's going on, junkies? It's Brandon Dukeman here with Will Harvey, and this is the Daily Wealth Junkies Show. Thanks for joining us today. We've got another awesome guest in store for you. But first, before we get started, don't forget, subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to, and rate and comment so that we know how we're doing and our guests know how they're doing. And also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealth junkies. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Will to introduce our guest.
Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate it. Hopefully you're getting over your cold that you have.
Yeah, it's a little stuffed up, but we're good. We're good.
Yeah, no. So yeah, today on the show we have Grant Botma, and he is described himself as a compassionate capitalist, which is different from the usual serial entrepreneur. So I love that. And he tries to find needs in the community and fulfill them as best he can. He's an author, and his company Stewardship recently won the award, the Inc. 5000. So he's kind of a big deal. So with that, Grant,
huge deal.
We really appreciate you coming on the show. Can you just give the listeners a little bit more about your background and what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, man, it's an absolute honor to be on the show. Grateful to be here. I'm excited to talk about just entrepreneurship and business growth and the things that your listeners are trying to hear about. You know, as mentioned, I own a company called Stewardship and started that at a really young age. And we've been fortunate to have some success because we do everything we can to serve our community and serve them well. And as we continue to look for needs and try to fill them well, we do more than just one business. We have multiple businesses with all kinds of different products and services all over the place, and appreciate just like I said, finding some of those needs and filling them. So yeah, I think that sums it up.
That's awesome. Well, that was the quickest story. Thanks guys for listening today. It's been great. No, so how did you what did you do after high school, college? Kind of give us that whole run up to entrepreneurialism.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, there was a company that many of you guys have probably heard of, Discover Card. They did like
I've heard of them.
A job fair at my high school to try and hire people, but they could only hire people who were 18. Mm-hmm. But because they were going to the high school, no matter who you were, no matter what your age was, you could still do an interview. And it was just to kind of help the kids learn how to interview and do all that.
That's a great experience. That's smart.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I was 15 years old at the time. And they did this kind of mock interview. And as part of the mock interview, they had you kind of fake a phone call. So you're on like one end of a partition. I'm on a phone. And then, I'm pretending to call somebody and just have this customer service call with them. And apparently I did well enough that by the time I got home from school, there was a call from Discover Card, an answering machine on our answering machine, and they were asking my dad if for permission for me to come work there. So
wow,
starting
awesome.
at the age of 15, I was able to get into finance and start working there. And I had some success at Discover Card. I was there as a credit card collector, and instead of just beating people over the head and saying you owe us, pay or else, I just kind of realized that life happens, and if they were past due, they're past due for a reason.
Right.
So rather than asking people for money on the first call, I would just listen and take lots of notes and say, hey, tell me about your story. What's going on? Why are you past due? And when I heard it, when I would hear them and listen well, I would take those notes, and then on the next call, I would talk about them again. And
that's
I would
cool.
it was a lot of fun for me as a kid.
Yeah. And that's huge too, because you're looking to solve their problem, not necessarily get your money. If you're not solving their problem, you're never going to get the money, and
That's
it's
true.
just going to be continuous debt for them.
Yeah. And something that I kind of put together early on too is if they were past due with Discover Card, there's a chance they were past due on a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
So, after several calls and building relationships with them, hey, did you find the job yet? Hey, how's your leg? Is it healing up, or whatever their issue was? Eventually what happened is my phone started ringing. So whenever they got money, they would remember all the people that they'd have to pay back, and guess who they decided to call back first, right?
Oh.
That was me. So I experienced a lot of success with that in being able to collect and collect well. And
were you commission based? Like, do you get paid off of what you collect or something like that?
Yeah. So you get paid an hourly rate, and then you did
Okay.
get paid based on what you collected, and there were bonuses for that and
Oh, that's
different
awesome.
things. Yeah. So it started out like when I was going there, I had to like ride my bike several miles in the Arizona heat. I'm here in Arizona, and it's hot in the summer.
Yeah.
But after several, about a year or so of saving up some money, and I'm driving to work in my new Camaro that I got and fixed
Nice.
up,
That's
and it was a lot of
awesome.
fun.
And
And
this
as
is
a
still
kid
high
in
school
high
age,
school,
right?
it's a blast
Yeah.
doing that. So.
That's wild.
Yeah. But then through that, I met somebody actually through my church who had started a mortgage company. And we were doing a trip or something like that with a whole bunch of high schoolers going to California to like go to the beach or whatever. And I don't know if you know anything about those high school trips, it's like they try to shove as many people into a 15 passenger van as they can.
So
So
yeah, I've been on those. Yeah.
yeah. So, everybody has to take turns sitting on the hump and up front. And when it was your turn to do that, the youth leader would kind of try to like embarrass you and tell stories or
Right.
whatever. So he's like, Grant, you got this nice car and you got money. Like, what's going on? Oh, like this is my job. And he's like, okay, let's pretend you're going to try to collect money from me, right? And he did this mock kind of phone call, and it was hilarious. And the kids were laughing, and it was a good time. And eventually, I got him to pay me in this kind of mock phone call.
That's
Wow.
funny.
So after the trip was over, he pulls me aside and he says, hey, I want to take you out to lunch. I want to talk to you about something serious. And he took me to lunch and offered me a job to come work for him in the mortgage industry. So I actually did not go to college right out of high school, and decided to pursue a career in the mortgage industry. So yeah.
Did you have people? I want to unpack that, and I feel like we're going to bond over the mortgage business because it's both of our backgrounds. But were a lot of people telling you you're making a mistake, you should go to college, and all of that stuff that's crammed down our throat?
Yeah, I think so. There was a lot of people that were telling me, yeah, go to college. But at the same time, because I had experienced some quote unquote success in high school with my job
Yeah.
in collections, um, people trusted me a little bit more. So rather than getting a
Okay.
ton of flack for it, people were just kind of almost more excited for this new endeavor.
Oh, that's cool.
And that was super helpful. Both of my parents, they didn't necessarily graduate from college or anything, and so it wasn't like this huge priority in our life. And I'm the middle of 7 kids. My
Oh,
oldest
wow.
brothers and sisters, they had gone to college and stuff, but it wasn't like college for us growing up was never like this thing that was put on a pedestal.
Right.
So
Right.
Got it.
when I grew up on a farm, and it was a dairy farm where we're trying to produce as much milk as possible, and we just grew up emulating my dad, who's a hard worker, and that's really all that mattered. And whether it was in college or something else, as long as you were working hard, that was really what mattered.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think if you go in with that plan and experience, and the college route isn't necessarily the best for everybody, or as important for you. You gained years of experience in high school to be able to set you up for
Yeah.
the job experience.
There's your college degree.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah. I mean, you got your
Yeah.
college degree in high school essentially with that
Yeah.
experience. So.
And funny enough, like the biggest thing that I had to go against when I started in the industry as a professional in mortgages was my age. I mean, I already kind of have a baby face, but people are already kind of pushing back on me because I was, basically 19 years old and helping grown adults with families with a really big decision and
Right.
hundreds of thousands of dollars of their money. That I got a lot of pushback on that, just my age. But
So
the good news,
you were a loan officer. You were brought in to be a loan originator.
correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. There were times where I would
Okay.
show up to people's houses to chat with them about an offering for their mortgage. And, I'd knock on the door and I'm like, hey, my name's Grant. I'm here to, and they like kind of look behind me like, where's your dad at? What's going
That's
on?
funny.
So I always had to learn to prove myself well within the first few minutes of the conversation.
So how did you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I did it with kind of what my current company is built on now. I did it with empathy and authority. So I focused in on the fact that I genuinely cared about him and would prove that, and did it well with some empathetic words. So similar to kind of what I did in the collections world. But then authority in communicating an expertise, information, wise advice that they probably have never heard about, that is going to help them in solving their problem. So empathy and authority were the things that I would focus on in those conversations, and that was always super helpful.
That's cool, because I think a lot of people would say that those are mutually exclusive terms, but the way you put that, that's really good. And if you are young and have a baby face, like you said,
Mm,
then coming across with confidence and knowing what you're talking about is crucial. And it can, very very similar to me. I mean, I was older than you. I feel like I felt like I was really young then, but hearing your story, I mean, how old were you then?
19,
That's
19.
insane.
Yeah.
I think I was 22, 23 when I
Mm,
got started, and you're 4 years behind me. That's wild. I can't even imagine that. So, and yeah, you're telling somebody it's for most of those people, it's the biggest financial decision they've ever made or ever will make.
mm-hmm,
Um, and they're kind of putting it in the hands of a 19-year-old. So
mm-hmm,
that's crazy to think about, and that's really cool that you even I feel like a lot of people would have just said, "I'm too young for this.
mm,
I don't have the confidence to go tell somebody to do that or whatever." So that's really
mm-hmm.
cool. So can you tell us the progression there, and just how you got started, how you started building a book of business, and maybe some early wins and losses that you experienced?
Yeah. Well, I got extremely, I guess, just lucky and fortunate that when I first started out, some of the wins were just with interest rates. So I started out, and then 9/11 happened, and the
Oh wow.
market really took a crash. And as part of that, what the government did and the economy did to help kind of recover from that was dramatically lower interest rates. So as a result, anyone and everyone that currently had a mortgage should be refinancing to get to a lower rate. So that allowed me to have my conversations be valuable and important to people. And it was kind of like a buzzword and thing to talk about in conversations. Like everyone wanted to talk to me and ask me like, so what are rates at? What are rates doing? Right. Because people wanted to know what they could get. And so that's really kind of where I built a name for myself, is that I was just a guy who genuinely cared about you and was going to get you the best deal possible.
That's
And that
awesome.
empathy and authority rang true. But eventually I did end up going to college. I went to a small college called Arizona Christian University and ended up playing basketball there. Um,
Nice.
and I thought, like, when I went there, I wanted to be a youth pastor and go into church because my youth pastor at the time was cool and I wanted to be cool like him.
Yeah.
But as I was working in the mortgage industry, I realized, like, man, there's a big need here. Um, there is a really big need to have people who genuinely care about others
Absolutely.
Yep.
helping with finances, because there really wasn't a ton of them. I was seeing people just getting hammered over like really, really bad mortgages.
You were in the
And
subprime, the yield spread days, weren't you?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Like back then, like the mortgage industry was crazy. I mean, there were like mortgages that were created that were terrible for people, but they
Yeah.
paid unreal commissions. And I'm just like watching all of this happen, and I'm like, whoa, this is not what's best for people. So while I was originating mortgage loans and in college, I just kind of created this business plan. I'm like, look, I'm tired of this, man. Like I want to create a place where people are going to have their finances handled well, whether they know it or not. And
That's really
just kind
cool.
of put together like a business plan and wrote out what stewardship is today. And that's where we do home loans. We also have insurance, and we're
Okay.
investment advisors as well. So yeah.
Got it. So I want to talk about when you're in the mortgage business. Sounds like you were doing well. The ball kind of bounced your way, so to speak, with the low rates,
Hmm.
um, and being in a refi market. But so why, if you were doing that volume and doing well, then how come you ended up going back to college ultimately?
I went to college mostly for the experience.
Okay.
I was a 19-year-old kid doing mortgages and really not connected with a crazy amount of people or a community, and all my friends were going to college.
Right.
So that was a big reason for it. I also really appreciated the opportunity to learn and play basketball on a collegiate level, and that was going to be a lot of
Nice.
fun.
Yeah.
But then really too, like I wanted to learn more and grow in my knowledge. It was a Christian university, so I was excited about growing my knowledge about the Bible, but I was also excited about growing
I
my
love
knowledge
that.
in other areas too. The crazy thing about it was, like you guys had mentioned, because I almost kind of went to quote unquote college before going to college, I felt like I knew more about business than my business professors
Yeah,
did.
and you
So I,
probably
Probably,
did. You
yeah.
probably did.
yeah,
You
yeah.
probably
So
did.
The ones that are teaching it, they got degrees to teach business, but
Right.
never have been in business or real life experience. So they're basically teaching what they got taught. But
Yeah.
that's my complaint about some of it is you have some of these courses that they're professional teachers. They're not professionals at what they're teaching. If that
yeah,
makes sense. So
That's a
it's just
great point.
it,
yeah,
but
and as there's a lot of truth to that I experienced. As great as those professors were, they cared about me, they mentored me, and they helped me. They hadn't been there. They had zero experience to help
yeah,
me with that, and I had to basically kind of take these ideas and this business plan of wanting to start my own financial entity without a whole lot of help from school. And if I'm honest with you, some of the books that were we had to go through in school that were telling me to do certain things were actually wrong and hurt me in
of
some
course.
ways,
I'm so
which is this is
shocked.
also a part of the story. So yeah.
Wow. So what were the first steps once you had this vision in your head that you got from being in the mortgage business and
Hmm.
just kind of realizing that there is a lot of shadiness out there,
Hmm.
and even today I feel like there's a little bit of that, and a lot of those bad products are starting to creep their way back in a little bit.
Yeah.
But once you realized that, you kind of had this vision, you knew you knew there was a problem and you knew how to fix it. But what was the first step that you did? How did you come up with the funding? Just give us the details on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I kind of wrote down this business plan as part of a class called entrepreneurship and had this idea for this company. And I felt like it was so well thought out and gone through because it had been a couple of years of me just going back to it, reiterating as I went through college. But I was just like pumped to get out of college and like act on this.
Yeah.
I was also excited about other things in my life. So I just fast tracked college. I decided I'm going to graduate early. I'm going to do this in 3 years. And I just
Nice.
took action and decided to take summer school classes, take a lot of different classes and just make it happen.
Just
And
knock it out.
yeah. And I just kind of had the attitude that like no one was going to outwork me. And
Mm.
I'm going to work hard during this season to make sure that I can move forward. And after graduating college, I presented actually this business idea to my boss at the time and said, hey, man, this is what I want to do. And here's why I want to do it. And his response was like, man, that's really cool. But Grant, if I do that, I'll lose money. So I can't. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do it on my own. And he gave me his blessing and even pointed me in the right direction of certain things that I needed to do to start my own mortgage company. And
That's cool that he supported you.
yeah, I mean, even today, like we were engaging on Facebook yesterday. He's just a guy that I appreciate and who's definitely helped me in my life. I think that's one of the big keys that I was able to have in college, and even through high school is I pursued older people that had been there and just tried to ask them questions. I kind of feel like that's the way mentorship should be done in today's society. It's kind of weird going up to somebody and say like, hey, could you be my mentor? Like that's just like feels
Right.
weird and not
Yeah.
everybody wants to do that because there's a time commitment, at least the really busy people, right? So I kind of just took my grandpa's advice and he's like, hey, Grant, if there's anybody with like gray hair and wrinkly skin, make sure you have a lot of really great questions ready to ask them. And I would think about that. I would have questions written down and thought through that I'm like, okay, what are some challenging questions I can ask somebody, whether it be about business or parenting or marriage or just life, so that when I was in a situation where I could ask them those questions, I would. And the
That's
cool thing was it wasn't like a formal mentorship, but those older people appreciated those questions I was asking and actually enjoyed their time with me.
mhm.
So it allowed me to really glean a lot from them, whether it was their successes, but even some of them were transparent enough to share with me their failures so I could learn from those as well.
That's awesome.
I think that's great advice. I mean,
Yeah.
not necessarily every mentor is going to be, an older individual, but like you said, find that individual who has the more experience that you can identify has the more experience, and make sure you have the questions down to ask, not just say, hey, can you mentor me? Because that just leaves the door open for pretty much anything. But when you have those questions, like you said, that's huge.
Yeah, when I was first getting started in the mortgage business and just learning about rental properties and all that, I remember I would get with my dad's friends and I would ask them to go to lunch. And so you're providing something of value to them. You're buying them a lunch, and they don't need it, but like you were saying, most people, they enjoy that, and they enjoy kind of imparting wisdom, so to speak, on somebody younger they've been in your shoes, they've been in my shoes before, so they know what that's like. And so everybody likes to talk about themselves, but also the fact that they can kind of pour into somebody younger and really feel like they're helping them, making a difference. It's huge. So I think that's such great advice to make it an informal type of mentorship. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. So
And even
where'd you
those
go? Yeah.
mentorships today are the types that work best for me, like,
Yeah, I love
and
that.
it doesn't even have to be something formal, like we have to create an event and put it in their calendar. But if I'm just around them by osmosis, I might walk into their office or knock on their door on their home, or while in a car on a drive, just have at least one question prepared. And I'm gonna say, hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? And everybody's going to say yes to that.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask something challenging, like, what was the biggest mistake you made as a leader?
That's
And
so
stop
good.
and just like let them answer that and resonate. I'm not going to ask them a whole bunch of questions and like have it be a grand inquisition and require
Mhm.
them to like repeat a dissertation to me. No one wants that.
Right.
But if I do ask that one question, it'll likely lead to some others or something like that for the next time that I'm alone in the car with them, or I'm having coffee with them or whatever else.
Right. And when you ask a question like that, I think that builds respect on your end with them, because, they're like, okay, this guy's serious about, wanting to understand, the business side of things, or just really, really anything, like you said, parenting, sports, whatever it might be, he's really trying to understand with these thought out questions. So like you said, that build for next time. Um, they'll give you a little bit more time next time, hopefully, or let you sit down with them. So,
Yeah, and the answers to those questions also help me learn more about those
yeah.
people. And I would do my best to take notes about that and understand who these people are. And then without them knowing it or even really asking for it, I would try to help them. They might say something about, their biggest mistake in their, say, marriage or something, and, wish they'd gone on more dates with their wife or whatever. And then I might like reach out and say, hey, I'm going to come watch your kids. You go out on a date with your wife. As a college kid, you could do something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they were like, what the heck? Who is this guy? He's helping me. And that allowed them to later on, when I wanted to do things, they wanted to help me succeed. And
Law of
even to the
reciprocity,
day,
right?
yeah. And even to this day, like these people are like cheering me on.
That's so cool.
And so, yeah.
So what once you met with some of those guys that gave you good advice, what did you do with that advice, and where'd you take the business from there?
Yeah, so some of the advice I actually didn't follow. One of the guys who poured into me was my uncle. And at the time I wanted to start the mortgage company, he was working in the investment world, and the writing was on the wall. He's like, Grant, starting a mortgage company right now is a bad idea. The recession is coming. Here is why. And he's like, I strongly urge you not to do this. He was so adamant about it that he took me out to lunch twice to really say, Grant, I care about you. Don't do this thing.
Wow.
But I felt strongly about it, and I wanted to do it anyways. And I felt enough confidence, and even knew with some numbers and some math that I could make it work. And
Even in a recession?
so I literally started the mortgage company just months before all of it really started hitting. And I honestly didn't really have to feel any of it from an income perspective. Things changed so dramatically over that next 2 years that the company that I was working for actually went out of business.
Wow.
And a lot of those employees and people, they all called me and were like, hey, can I come work for you?
That's awesome.
So you almost
And
kind of benefited from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
kind of,
Yeah.
but the way that I do my business is very different than most. So rather than looking at a consumer and seeing how much money can I make off of them, I determine how much money bare minimum do I need to make in order for my business to be profitable and continue doing the things that I need to do. And I set a ceiling for myself. So that means I'm setting a limit on my income per transaction.
Absolutely.
And when I
Wow.
told other people about that, I'm like, yeah, you can come work for me, but you have to do this. They were like, oh, Grant, that's neat. I'll call you later, man. And then I would never hear from them again. So I didn't necessarily grow my business that way. I don't grow my financial business the traditional way, which is try to bring on a whole bunch of awesome salespeople. We genuinely are customer centric, trying to find any experience, whether it be micro or macro, and making it as awesome as possible for the customer. And as a result, our community tells others about us, and we grow. So even to this day, with my team, they don't necessarily have to go out and get business. That's not their job. Their job is to genuinely care for the people that like I silver spoon feed them the referrals and leads.
Okay.
That's huge, and you don't see this very often. Your approach to this, because it, from what I gather, it's not really necessarily about making money to you, which is, obviously we're the wealth junkies, and for you, wealth is the customer service part of the business, not necessarily the amount of money the business makes. And I think that's huge because it's not always about the money.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's something that people mix up with me. Because I'm religious, because I'm Christian, because I'm genuinely having a customer centric. I think of a lot of people think like, oh, well, this isn't all about money for Grant, which it isn't. There's a greater purpose there. I
Mhm.
genuinely want to make an impact on other people. I want to do work that matters.
Right.
I want to help others, but it's not like I'm running a non-for-profit.
No, absolutely. Absolutely not.
We are very, I think building wealth is praiseworthy. I think building wealth is a measure of the impact that you are making on people.
Absolutely.
It's
And I
biblical.
think
Yeah.
and I think what's worked for us has been most people, when they're entrepreneurs or starting a business, get short-sighted and looking at every single transaction and trying to max out the transaction
Right.
rather than trying to max out the relationship, which is the longest thing.
Right.
So if you genuinely care for somebody and even sacrifice up front in that relationship, even if it means you're not going to make as much money in the transaction to start, it's going to allow you to the right to earn additional income from that relationship as you continue to fill needs for that person. And I took a long tail approach to it rather than kind of a short-sighted one, and it worked out.
Yeah, most definitely. And you have those relationships and you build that reputation for yourself. The money's going to come, the customers are going to come, and
Yeah.
you're gonna have a long-term relationship with that individual rather than one-time customer.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that the heart of every business is this: you find needs and you fill it.
Yeah.
And if without that, you don't have a business.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to fill those needs is by serving. And the only way that I can serve people well is if I genuinely put their needs ahead of my own. Full stop.
Amen.
If I'm not doing that consistently, my business is going to not be sustainable and will eventually fail. So everything that you've got that I do within the business has that in mind. Like, okay, I understand I have some needs and desires of my own, but which of those can I actually sacrifice, still run my business, but sacrifice to put the customer's needs first? And that lens has been a huge part of our success.
That's really cool. So you started this as just a mortgage business. Tell
Yep.
us about how it morphed into everything else that you're now doing.
Yeah. So again, finding needs and filling them as you're working with people on their mortgages. They're required to get insurance as part of the process. And I was watching and seeing some of the experiences that customers were having, not only from a pricing perspective, but also from a service perspective. I'm like, man, people deserve better than this. And I kind of have this attitude, despite my youth then, I had this attitude of like, if I drove downtown and I saw these big buildings and there was like a bank or whatever sign on it, I didn't get intimidated like, ooh, they must know what they're doing. Like, to me, I would see these companies, I'm like, some dude just started that just like me. There's nothing different between them and me.
Mm-hmm.
As arrogant as that may be, I feel like it was helpful. And I just decided I'm going to take action. Like, I'm not going to wait around to complain about these needs that are out there. If I see a need and I know that I can fill it, I go. And that's
I
what
love
happened.
that.
I saw a need with insurance. I went for it. I saw a need in financial planning and investment management. I went for it. And there are individuals like me, like you guys, like the listeners. They're just people that are starting these gigantic companies at some point.
That's right.
And if they can do it, you can too. And I think that's one thing that most successful people that I have run into, the thing that they all have in common is they just take action. And that's what I did. I found a need, filled it, took action, and moved forward.
Yep.
Yep.
And problems come up, you solve them, and you move on, and you just keep growing. I mean, look at Jeff Bezos. He started Amazon in, I think, 1994, and he just started like everyone else. I think he started in a garage,
Yep.
similar to Microsoft and Apple and all that. And they're no different than anybody, like you said, anybody talking right now or anybody that's listening right now. I love that. I love what you just said. That was really good. And you just take action. I mean, that's the key.
Yeah.
So.
And I think sometimes you can get paralyzed, hoping that the action that you take, or before taking action, that it's got to be perfect or it's got to do well. But one of my favorite quotes is this: B- work changes lives. Really. And you don't have to have it perfect before taking action. Look, when I started the insurance company, I had zero experience in insurance. Never. Like, I literally got licensed, passed the test, and then opened the company basically within a week. Like, I had
That's
no
hilarious.
experience. So I had no idea what I was doing. But here's where my confidence came in. I had confidence that what I was doing was genuinely going to help people and make an impact. That no matter what, even if I didn't know exactly how to execute it on a day-to-day, like click the right buttons in the systems or figure out things with insurance, some dude somewhere figured it out, so I can too. And I just read things like crazy, researched like crazy, and made mistakes along the way. But those mistakes helped me grow and get to the level where I'm at. Because the bottom line thing that I had from day one, even though I didn't have the experience, was I was filling the needs with other people in mind instead of myself.
That's awesome.
I love it because we did the when we came up with the decision to do the podcast, we had no idea. We had no idea what we were doing, and we just started doing it, and
we still don't.
Yeah, we still have no idea what we're doing. And every day we're talking to each other like, all right, we need to change this, we need to change that, do this, do. But if we sat there and made the perfect plan for it, we would still be at episode 0.
Yeah, we would have never started. That's right.
I love when people talk about taking that action, because
that's right.
It's huge.
Yeah, hats off to you guys. Kudos to you guys, because now there's countless people who are listening to your guys' show, all these episodes, and impact is being made on them. Like, quite literally, you know, your work, your action is changing lives. That's a big deal. So the action that you're taking is making an impact, and it matters. And that's a big deal, I think, for all of us to be able to resonate with as we're taking those actions. So well done to you guys.
I appreciate it. What are some of the what are some of the stuff that you have going on in the works and coming down the pike in your company?
Yeah, so I'd say for us, we're going to continue to find needs and fill them. A couple things that we're going to be adding over the next year or so is we're going to start doing tax planning and tax advice and filing people's taxes as well. We're also looking at kind of innovating and changing the way maybe that real estate is done, and potentially adding a real estate company, so those things. But something that kind of happened over the last several years is with some of the success that you have and people start noticing what you and your team are doing. People always ask you, like, how did you do it? And the next thing I know, I'm speaking at events and doing different stuff. And I kind of felt myself like, man, I'm traveling all over speaking at these events, and this is not necessarily what I want to do. So what I did was take that information and actually put it in a book. And
nice.
The publisher recently put the launch date on that one. So it released on November 19 of 2019. The book is called The Problem Isn't Their Paycheck, and it's how to build a thriving company culture. Because a lot of the success is due to, yes, taking action. It's due to putting the customer's needs first. But in order for it to scale, and in order for me to get out of working in the day-to-day, but to work on the big picture stuff, I had to have a team of awesome people. That's kind of the primary topic that people ask me to chat and talk about at different events. So that's what I put in this book.
Love it.
That's awesome. And there you go again with the needs. People are needing you to talk about it. Why not put in a book so I can reach out to more people?
That's it. Yeah.
That's great. So, well, Grant, we're going to move into our Moments of Truth segment here. It's the same 7 questions we ask all of our guests, and we're just going to dive right into the first question here. Who is your success role model?
My success role model changes, I think, as my life changes, but it is measured by the person that's making the most impact on people. I'm currently kind of in this like new world of like online businesses and books, right? So my current success role model is a guy named Donald Miller who has the company called Story Brand. And I really, really like what he's doing there because of the gigantic impact that he's making on other businesses. So that's one of them.
Very cool.
Huge, yeah.
What's your biggest success?
Man, I think my biggest success is just like I said, the impact that we're having on people. On our website, we have reviews where people are able to type out their experience of working with us. And if I go to the website right now, it's like kind of a real-time ticker. So I'll have to look at it right now, but I believe it's over 1,000
Wow.
reviews that people have
That's impressive.
said something. Yeah. So 1,128 people have shared their experience in working with us. And I think that's it. That's the biggest success
That's
is
huge.
genuinely making positive impact on other people.
Yeah, because you get a customer or a future customer that's checking out different companies and they see 1,128 reviews. They're like, that's the company I want to be with.
Yeah.
Even if they're not. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, whether you're selling investment advice or you're selling toothbrushes, all of us inherently are designed to know, am I doing it right? That's why the reviews section on Amazon is the #1 clicked on thing.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to know, is this the right thing? Is this the
Yeah.
right purchase I'm making?
I do
And
that
if
all
you
the
can,
time. Yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, again, even if it's a toothbrush, it could be $2, but you're still going to
Right.
click on the
Right.
reviews. Like, is this going to be right? So we need ease of use. We need convenience. You have to roll in technology and great customer experiences on that level, but you got to let people know that they're doing it right. And I think testimonials are a huge part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Grant, what's a typical day for you look like?
So I am very different than most entrepreneurs. I'm not that rise and grind 5 a.m. club type person. I actually wake up like at about 8 o'clock. So I sleep
Really?
in every day. Oh yeah. Yep. I am not, you got to wake up before God and the sun is up. That's not me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wake up around 8 o'clock every day. I am very quick in the morning to kind of get ready and get out the door and hug and kiss my wife and kids. And when I am at the office, the first thing I'm doing is making sure I'm connecting with my team and giving them all high fives, encouraging them, or just seeing how they're doing. But then also making sure I'm looking over my schedule and being extremely intentional about my day. And I buy into really scheduling a lot of your day and scheduling a lot of your things. So that's a big part, is having my personal assistant, what adjustments do we need to make to my schedule? What did you put in my schedule today? What's it like going to be tomorrow? So yeah, my typical day basically is making sure I'm doing what's in my calendar from what my assistant scheduled. And a lot of that has to do with my kind of CEO and management role. I'm the brand ambassador for our company, and doing my best to disciple my team and empower them to kind of love people well through finances.
Very cool. What is your favorite quote?
I shared one of them, B minus work changes lives. I think
Yeah, I
that
like
one's
that one.
great
Yeah.
because then, people end up taking action. I have another quote that I really like too. And that is, the best intentions require intentional actions. The best intentions require intentional actions. I think there's so many people out there that have these great ideas and have the best intentions to be an awesome business owner or leader or father or husband or whatever, but if you don't follow them up with extremely intentional actions, it means nothing.
Yeah,
So
they're just thoughts, right?
Exactly. So you got to take those thoughts, those good intentions, and you got to put them into action very intentionally with your schedule and other things.
Yeah,
that's right.
So Grant, what are some of your hobbies?
I love, I get to travel and I get to do different things, but my favorite thing is to sit at home and do nothing with my family.
I love it. We're friends already. I love it. That's what I do.
It's just my favorite. I'm a huge baseball fan. I'm a Cubs fan, even though I'm born and raised in Arizona. We didn't have the Diamondbacks when I was younger. I take off the basically entire month of March, and me and my family, we go to all the spring training games and just kind of hang out at home and really enjoy Arizona when Arizona is at its best during that month. So
Nice.
my hobbies are just hanging with my family, doing nothing, and maybe some baseball mixed in.
Very cool.
Yeah. What is the best business book that you've read?
So I mentioned Donald Miller. I really like his book, Building a Story Brand. I think it's excellent. It creates a very big paradigm shift in marketing and kind of where your mindset needs to be with it. And I strongly suggest it for anyone and everyone. Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller is a great, great book.
Awesome.
And last question here. If there's one key piece of advice you could leave our listeners with about achieving success, what do you think it would be?
Take action.
Yep.
Take action. It doesn't matter what your age is. It doesn't matter where you're looking to take action. There are these gigantic big businesses out there that are quote unquote competition. If you have a way of filling a genuine need that's out there, take action. You can do it. It sounds like I'm like this super smart, I grew up on a farm. And for entertainment, I kicked cow patties as a kid. That's not super smart. There's nothing special about me. I'm not unbelievably well-spoken. I didn't go to these crazy universities. I didn't come from any money. I just took action. And I think that's a really, really, really big deal is don't let certain things intimidate you, like your age or maybe not being perfect or these other bigger businesses that are other people that are doing it that have a different perception. Just go.
Love that.
That's awesome. So Grant, real quick, how can our listeners get in contact with you and name of your book again and where they can get that when it's released? And
yeah, so I'm super active on Instagram at Grant Botma. I actually do an Instagram story at least every weekday, and I talk about either finances or business or company culture. So you can follow me on Instagram there. I have a pretty big following on Facebook as well, so you can check me out there. But yeah, the book is live now on Amazon. It is the ebook, the paper version, hardback, and also Audible. That's another thing. I don't really read a ton, but I listen a lot. And
nice.
You can buy the book.
What's it called?
Now. It is called, well, I'm just going to, you guys are on YouTube too, right? I can put it up. But The Problem Isn't Their Paycheck, How to Attract Top Talent and Build a Thriving Company Culture. So this book actually, I think is really great for business leaders who are looking to scale their business and have a great team. But it's also really good for people who might be coming out of college or trying to find a different career because it helps you articulate what you're going to want in that next company that you work for.
Very cool.
Yeah, The Problem Isn't Their Paycheck.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely get myself a copy.
Yep.
But Grant, we appreciate you being on the show today. We could probably talk for several hours, and I know you and Will get a pretty good connection with the mortgage industry. But we appreciate you being on. And for our listeners, check out Grant on Instagram, Facebook. Grab his copy of his book, and don't forget, join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealthjunkies, and subscribe to the show so that way you're not missing any of our daily episodes. Grant, we appreciate you being on today.
Hey, you know what? If one more thing, you guys, if you're listening to this show, I strongly suggest that you subscribe to this podcast, Wealth Junkies. You guys, I'm reading and got to know some of these guys before this podcast, and the mission of what they're trying to do, you want to be involved in. So make sure that you subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. It's been an honor to be on, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
No, it's been a pleasure having you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yep. We'll have to do a follow-up.
For sure. I'm into it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Grant. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye-bye.